In central Arizona, there is a sacred mountain range where people search for gold and where the Apache First Nations people also live. It is a place where people go missing or are found murdered. I'm talking about the Superstition Mountains. I am going to go over the lore of the area from native sources and then talk about the legendary gold mine and finish it off with the tragic stories of missing people. I also want to chat about what could be killing these treasure hunters. If you like the paranormal, cryptids, or mythology from around the world, then consider giving me a follow and a like. Hit the bell icon too so you're always notified when I post. Now, this next video is going to be graphic, and that means that I'm going to talk about true stories about victims. I also want to pay respects to the victims and their families, so just be aware that I'm these are real people, and it's important to pay the stories of their deaths with like the utmost respect. This video is going to have some paranormal theories and some true crime mixed in together. I also want to try something new, bunkai. I think that's going to be my thing, by the way, meaning let's start the show. If you know where it's from, then please tell me what my bunkai is. All right, back to the show. So the Apache believed that the Superstition Mountains are home to a thunder god. They also believed that it was the entrance to the underworld. The natives also considered the mountain sacred and would prevent any incursions. They were also terrified of it. So much so that when the Spanish conquistadors traveled to the area in 1540s to search for gold. Sorry guys, my Spanish is brutal sometimes. The Spanish only made it to the foothills of the mountains before being warned by the Apache not to trespass on the land of the thunder god. When the Spanish chose not to listen, and shortly after, something attacked the Spanish. See, the Apache were trying to protect them, trying to take care of them, but the Spanish didn't listen because gold was involved. Their guns and steel breastplates were useless and ineffective against whatever they fought. There was no sign of a fight either. The Spanish just got destroyed without much effort. Do you think it was the Apache or some creature that lives there in the Superstition Mountains? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the natives were able to defeat the Spanish. The Spanish had steel, horses, and guns. Like, they had steel armor, steel breastplates. And maybe the Apache were faster with their bows and arrows and the Spanish were with their primitive guns, because they were flintlock. I think that's what they're called. What do you think? The Spanish would also have random members of their party disappear, and they never saw who was taking their members. Now, the Apache would have done a straight attack. They wouldn't have done ambush. And if they do an ambush, the Spanish would have mentioned later that it was the Apache, but they don't say that. They just said that they were having people missing from their group. The Spanish didn't mention the Apache like they mentioned them in other wars in the 1800s. They eventually gave up after losing far too many people. People started to jump ship. So the leaders of the Spanish, they just took off. Now, the mountain's legends about gold would continue to attract people to its region. There was a rich family called the Peraltas, and the Peraltas, they had a mining operation in the hills around the Superstition Mountains. That wasn't until they were massacred by the Apache. Now, the Apache killed everyone in the family and the family's employees, people that they hired, so a lot of Mexicans. The Apache did it as a warning to stop people from trespassing on the thunder god's home. They believed that they would anger him and they would all suffer as a consequence. After a while, people forgot that there was a mine until there was a man named by the name of Abraham Thorne. And Abraham came into Phoenix with a bag full of gold. He said that he lived with the Apache for a decade, and while studying their culture, he gave them medical care. So as a thank you, he was blindfolded and taken to the mine so he could take as much gold as he could possibly carry. Later on in the 1870s, there was a German prospector called Jacob Waltz, who actually found the gold mine and would keep the location of the mine a secret. Now, this guy is different because the other guy, he was taken there. This guy actually found it, and we know this for sure because the dude sold $250,000 worth of gold, which I think is like $4 million back then, and today with inflation. And he sold all that gold to the U.S. Mint before he passed away. So we know for sure there's official records of that, or that's what I read online. So take that with a grain of salt. So the gold mine exists. After he died, they named the mine the Dutchman's Gold Mine. No one's been able to find it and further funnel more people to the mountains, which has further funneled more people into the mountains. A man named Elijah Rivas moved there from California. Now, this guy was crazy. He built a cabin in the mountain range and he was there to search for gold. I'm telling you, he was crazy AF and acted like a complete crackhead. He wouldn't shave or cut his hair. He looked like one of those dudes on Skid Row. And he was like a skinny little caveman, but he was also strapped. He was packing heat. And did I mention that he liked to be butt naked too? My kind of guy. And even the Apache stayed away from him. They had orders from other Apache leaders to not mess with this dude. until one day his body was found lying about 4 miles away from his cabin. His head was carefully placed on a rock several feet away, and it was looking at his body. They were mocking him. Someone killed him, chopped off his head, put it on top of something so his head could look at his separated body. Now, if you're thinking the Apache killed him for sure, I don't think so. The Apache feared the ghost of the dead and would avoid corpses at all costs. If they saw a corpse, they would have a lengthy ritual, like a very long ritual that was very taxing when exposed to a dead body because of the spirit. They would never leave the body laying around. But what I also read was that when they found a body, they would shove it into the mountain. If they found like a crack in the mountain or the cliffside, they would just put the body in there like a burial, because somehow the rock can prevent the spirit, I believe. And the alleged Peralta massacre was thought to have happened committed by the Apache, and they buried the bodies of the family right away. So they didn't, and they didn't cut their heads off either. Everyone else avoided crackhead Elijah like the plague. I don't think it's the same. I personally think it's something completely different than the Apache that killed the Spanish. I'm going with the paranormal. Other people would say it's the Apache, but the Apache, they don't fuck with dead corpses. They don't cut heads off, and if they do, they bury everything. They're terrified of the bodies. So I just have a hard time believing that they actually did something. They would I can't pronounce the word. They would screw around with a dead body. It's not their MO. And the Spanish bodies from the 1500s were always found without their heads. They weren't buried either. So again, who's really killing these people that come and trespass? They're always left headless and unburied. In the summer of 1931, a well-equipped man by the name of Adolf Ruth disappeared at the mountains while looking for gold. His skull was found with 2 bullet holes, and 4 weeks later, the rest of his remains were found. I think personally he was robbed by people. The coroner ruled that he committed suicide when he was unable to walk. So the coroner thought that he got hurt, and he's like, I'm going to kill myself. But here's the problem. His head was chopped off, and it's impossible to shoot yourself twice in the head. His skull, his forehead had 2 bullet holes through it. So he was likely murdered and robbed at the very least. But I don't know. His gun was also missing as well, so it had to have been a human. It's another fucked up death of there's also another completely screwed up death of a treasure hunter named James A. Cavey. In July 1947, he was transported into the mountains by helicopter, and he set up a base with 2 weeks of provisions in the La Barge Canyon. So it's a little canyon, and it's a canyon or a portion of this mountain range. He set off on foot from there, and so he got dropped off at this little, this area, and he had so much food and water. So he's good. He's really being smart. He's using modern technology to do this. And 2 weeks passed, and the helicopter pilot returned. All the supplies were untouched, and there was no sign of treasure hunter James. Now, the pilot calls the sheriff, and a search party forms. They had dogs to aid in the search, but they didn't find shit. A group of hikers in the following February, they find James's body. His body was rolled up like a joint in a blanket and left hanging from the edge of a rock cliff, or by a rope that was tied neatly around the body or his ankles. I just imagined that his body was tied up like the Predator, if you ever watched the movie Predator. Which I found was super odd, because his ID papers, clothing, and money were all left in a pile nearby. The killer even put a rock on top of his stuff so they wouldn't blow away. So that's often what we hear, is like they kill these people, they chop off their heads, or they just murder them, and they leave their stuff there. The only time was the gun that was stolen, and the supplies that were in the canyon, they were left alone as well. I don't know. What do you guys think? The killings also didn't stop there. The killings happened so much. So many killings happened in the 60s and 70s. There was always urban legends of massacres and killings in that area. It's an old story. And in December 2009, the body of a 35-year-old dude from Colorado was found. His name was Jesse Kappen, and he was obsessed with finding the mine. And I should also add that every single person I mentioned was obsessed with finding the mine, and they all did their homework. They all had like briefcases full of books. Like, they knew the area, they practiced, they studied, they had made multiple trips there. Like, all these people, they have like a couple trips under their belt, or they just know a lot about the mine. So they're not going in there unprepared. And Jesse, the most recent case, even made 3 trips to the mountains before he disappeared. After the third time, bro, you just got to give up. You didn't find it the first 2 times or first 3 times. It's over. It's boom data. You just got to give up. But gold, it's appetizing. So his car was found on a remote road, and his phone and wallet were still inside the car. Again, he wasn't robbed. He's just killed. His body was found broken apart 3 years later, and it was pushed into a giant crack in the rock face. So whoever killed him just threw him into a crack in the cliff. I thought for sure he fell in there, but the way the crack was formed, it made it impossible for his body to have fallen inside. And more than likely, he was put there by someone. I also read that the Apache do bury the dead like that. I mentioned that earlier in the story. There's also another man named James Kidd that vanished in 1949. He actually has a Wikipedia, so check that link out. I'll put the link in the description, or just Google it. He had amassed a fortune. Oh yeah, his name, James Kidd. He had amassed a fortune shortly before going on his first trip to the Superstition Mountains. Again, this guy actually got rich after going to the mountains the first time. So we're pretty sure that this guy that he actually found the treasure. So we're pretty sure that he actually found the treasure, because when he died and after he went missing, his family checked his possessions and stuff, and he even said like, oh, they found out that he had a fortune, right? And he's completely rich and he did well for himself, and it happened shortly. Like, this money was recent. No one knew he had the money. The money happened right after he had visited the mountain range the first time. So possibly he discovered it. He also found the mine, and he went back to get more gold and whatever's there. So he got killed. So the second time he went, that's when he died. People also claim that he found the lost mine, like I just mentioned, and his body was never found. So this one's probably my favorite part of the story. Really crazy story besides the crazy butt guy. There was this guy named Barry Storm. All right, so this man named Barry Storm. He said he attempted to find the mine, but turned around after being stalked and shot at by a sniper. He called the man Mr. X, and Barry thought that he was some type of guardian of the mine. He also believes that Mr. X was the one that killed Adolf Ruth 15 years prior. And before I end the story, I want to go over some spooky urban legends of the area. So you're most likely wondering, George, if it's not the Apache or a group of serial killers, then what the heck is killing all these treasure hunters? The area is rich in people, like monsters and things with there was this giant monster that you can see at night, and it walks around carrying a lantern and people can see it. Anyways, let me get on back to my notes. Anyways, quick story. This is a separate story, but more to do with the urban legends, because a lot of people say they see spirits there. Bedtime Stories is a YouTube page that I love listening to, and I highly recommend everybody here go listen to Bedtime Stories, because they're the best YouTube channel on YouTube, on the platform, doing paranormal stuff. They kill it. Everybody else is like second fiddle. They're number one for sure, and they don't have as many subscribers as they should. Anyways, so they posted a picture of a sub who actually was at the mountains, and he took a photo. And the guy is taking a picture. He said that no one was behind him when he took the picture, but it looks like some dude from like the 1800s or the 1600s or 1700s. He's not from our time period, and his face looks like it's completely black, so it could be burnt, or he was a miner. So, it's super creepy. I'll post the pictures it's on my thumbnail, so if you want to check that out. It looks like someone from another time. It's embedded in my head. It's just such a cool story. And I don't know, what do you think? Anyways, back to the Apache writings. They talk about the Tuar Tums. They're this underground species that occasionally can be seen staring at people from the top of ridges and boulders. And I personally think these things are what's tearing people's heads off for trespassing. They're almost like a huge, angry Bigfoot leprechaun hybrid that protects its huge gold mine from would-be invaders. So I say leprechaun because leprechauns have a pot of gold that they protect. And I'm saying this thing is like Bigfoot. Like they look like Bigfoot, but like huge. They're like 7 feet tall. And the Apache claims that the area also has a portal to the The Apache claims that the area contains a portal to the underworld. And what if there's some huge lost world in these mountains that goes under the surface of the earth? and deep down there's this giant cavern that we don't know about. And we recently discovered that Vietnam has the largest sorry guys, we recently discovered that that Vietnam has this giant cave it's the largest cave by volume in the world, and I believe that the earth has different layers with living beings that we currently don't understand, the ocean being a great example. I will cover this lost world idea on my next podcast. It's been a month since the last episode, so I'm pumped for this next podcast that we're going to do. This video ran a little long, and I underestimated the Superstition Mountains, not unlike the people who brave the area for riches. What do you think? Do you think there are monsters there, or perhaps there is a group of people that have found the gold stockpile but kill people to protect the mine? Perhaps the group is generation after generation of people that protect the gold and don't want to share their gold. Who knows? Anyways, guys, what should I cover next? Let me know in the comments, and please like and sub. Also, hit the bell icons so you can be notified when I post. Also, can you guys please share my videos and show some of your friends that want to learn about the paranormal? When I bring up a story, I'm not lecturing you guys. I'm simply telling you what I've researched, and I want this to be a discussion where we can talk about stuff. Because this whole notion of the lost world really intrigues me. Because what if Earth has different country-sized caves or underground structures that we just haven't seen, and that there's intelligent life? I mean, if you think about the whole history of life, we're the first intelligent species that we think of, which I think is crazy because we've only been around for 200,000 years. So what if during the time of the dinosaur there was a smart species, or any time period? The chances, if we popped up in 200,000 years, the chances of another intelligent species coming from Earth, I think is pretty good. So I don't know the science behind it, but I'm just assuming that in 200,000 years we popped up, that for sure in the last 65 million years, 85 million years, 125 million years, there's been one other smart species. And I would even say that there's been a dozen, and that some of these species are still alive within some type of pocket in the earth, because the mantle is full of caverns like this cave in Vietnam. I don't know. I sound a little crazy, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and please like and subscribe. Hit me up on Uncle George 9 if you want to direct message me on TikTok, or Captain_Hakagi on Instagram, or just comment and I'll message you. Just hit me up, and we can always talk about the paranormal. All right, guys, love you. This is it. See ya.